Stress may feel like a modern invention, born out of busy schedules and endless noise, but people have always wrestled with pressure and worry. The ancient Stoics, living 2,000 years ago, faced battles, political unrest, and personal loss, yet they developed strategies that allowed them to remain steady and clear-headed. Their wisdom has endured because it speaks to something timeless: the human need for calm in the middle of chaos. When life speeds up, Stoicism offers tools to slow the mind down. Stoicism isn't dusty philosophy locked in books. It's a way of thinking and living that can be practiced in everyday life. The Stoics taught through short, sharp reminders and habits that acted like anchors. Marcus Aurelius, a Roman emperor juggling armies and politics, would pause and remind himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." Stories of simple people, too, echo this spirit. Imagine a fisherman caught in a storm at sea. Instead of panicking, he steadies himself by focusing on the oars, guiding his boat inch by inch to safety. That's Stoicism in action, not escaping the storm, but mastering the response to it. So here's the big question. If the Stoics could use these strategies to find calm in the heat of battles, storms, and daily struggles, then what practical methods can we use today to stop stress in its tracks, sometimes in less than a minute? If these timeless Stoic lessons spark something in you, don't just leave it here. Let's keep the conversation going. Hit subscribe so you won't miss the next practical strategies we'll explore. Tap like if you believe calm is a skill worth practicing, and drop a comment sharing how you personally steady yourself when stress comes knocking. Your insight might be the story that helps someone else find their calm, just as the Stoics once shared theirs. Number 1. Closing your eyes and focusing on the sounds around you. One of the simplest ways to calm a restless mind is to pause, close your eyes, and let the world speak to you. The Stoics believed in the power of shifting attention, a kind of gentle redirection of the mind away from chaos toward clarity. Imagine sitting in a crowded market, noise, chatter, and movement everywhere. Instead of being swallowed by the rush, you close your eyes and simply listen. The rhythm of footsteps, the laughter of a child, the crackle of bread being baked. Suddenly, what felt overwhelming becomes grounding. Epictetus reminded his students, "If you wish to be free, do not wish for everything to happen as you like, but wish for things to happen as they do." Listening teaches us that life unfolds around us with its own music, and when we tune in, stress loosens its grip. The Stoics often used practices that resemble today's mindfulness. Stress loves to drag us into the what-ifs of the future or the if-onlys of the past. By focusing on what our senses pick up right now, we anchor ourselves to the present. Picture a shepherd in ancient Greece guiding his flock. He can't control whether wolves lurk nearby or storms roll in, but in the moment he notices the crunch of grass underfoot, the warmth of the sun, and the bells on the sheep. That grounding in the present, even for a minute, gives him steadiness. In the same way, tuning into everyday sounds, whether the hum of a ceiling fan or the rustle of leaves, places us firmly back in the now, where calm can grow. Stoicism was not just about endurance. It was also about the art of paying attention. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to pause and observe without judgment, writing, "Observe always that everything is the result of change." When we listen deeply, we practice this same art. A student overwhelmed by exams, for example, might step outside, close her eyes, and listen to birdsong or distant traffic. For one short minute, she steps outside the whirlwind of thought. This isn't escape. It's training the mind to rest, to notice, and to realize that stress shrinks when attention is gently placed elsewhere. The beauty of this exercise is its simplicity. You don't need special tools, just the willingness to pause. The Stoics believed that philosophy wasn't meant for lofty speeches, but for practical use in daily life. By closing your eyes and opening your ears, you invite calm into the moment and remind yourself that serenity often hides in the simplest practices. Even 60 seconds of mindful listening can create a pocket of peace in the busiest day, a living proof that timeless wisdom still has the power to steady modern minds. Number 2. Fake smiling. It may sound strange, but even forcing a smile when you don't feel like it can quickly shift the way your body and mind respond to stress. The Stoics believed that the body and the mind are deeply connected, and that sometimes the body can lead the way. Imagine a farmer who, after a long and tiring day in the fields, greets his family with a smile. At first, it may be an act, but soon the warmth in his home makes the smile real. This simple act of faking joy sparks a genuine change within. As Seneca once noted, where the mind goes, the face follows. But where the face leads, the mind often goes too. Stoicism often emphasizes habits, rituals, and small daily practices that shape our character. Smiling, even if forced, can be understood as one of these habits. By teaching the body to assume the posture of calm or happiness, the mind is nudged in the same direction. Think of a soldier returning from battle who sits by a fire, forcing a grin at his comrades' jokes. That grin eases tension, builds connection, and slowly helps him shake off the fear of combat. To the Stoics, this was training, practicing strength in small gestures so that, when needed, strength arises naturally. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily to paint his inner world with thoughts and actions that would uplift him. A smile, even one born out of deliberate effort, is a kind of paintbrush. A student dreading an exam might look in the mirror, pull a smile onto their face, and suddenly feel lighter. This isn't about pretending problems don't exist. It's about showing the mind a path away from heaviness. Over time, these intentional gestures help us build resilience, reminding us that emotions are not only things that happen to us, but also states we can shape. The Stoics never promised a life without stress. They offered tools to meet it with courage and composure. Fake smiling is one such tool, deceptively small, yet powerful in its effect. A forced grin may last only a few seconds, but those seconds can reset your mood, calm your heart, and remind you that stress is not the ruler of your day. The lesson here is simple. Even the smallest, most ordinary actions can serve as anchors of strength. Sometimes, the act of lifting your lips upward is enough to lift your spirit with it. Number 3. Smelling a calming scent. Sometimes the quickest way to quiet the storm inside is through something as simple as a smell. The Stoics paid attention to the senses, knowing that they could redirect the mind and settle the body. Imagine walking into a room filled with the fragrance of freshly baked bread. For a moment, the world slows down. You feel anchored, even comforted. A calming scent works in much the same way, shifting attention and giving your mind a pocket of rest. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." Scent helps us step out of imagination's noise and into the here and now. Stoicism taught that the body is not separate from the soul, but a companion in the search for calm. Breathing in a familiar or soothing aroma is like sending a message to the nervous system that all is well. A tired traveler in the ancient world, for instance, might find peace in the smell of olive oil lamps or burning wood after a long day's march. That simple sensory reminder could soften the edge of weariness and sharpen focus. In this way, calming scents become tiny rituals that ease stress and prepare the mind for steadiness. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to look within for strength, but he also recognized the value of external anchors. A calming scent, a sprig of rosemary, the resin of pine, or today's lavender oil can serve as such an anchor. Picture a craftsman at his bench, pausing to smell the cedar shavings from his work. In that instant, he is reminded of purpose, patience, and clarity. Anchors like these don't erase stress, but they help us meet it with composure. They pull us back into balance when the mind is tempted to spiral. What the Stoics understood is that philosophy is not only in words but in practice, often in the smallest, simplest acts. Smelling a calming scent for just a few seconds can be a kind of micro-meditation, a way of reminding yourself that peace is always accessible. It doesn't require long speeches or elaborate rituals. It requires awareness and intention. In a busy day, one breath of something soothing can remind you, as the Stoics believed, that tranquility is always within reach if only you pause to notice it. Number 4. Looking at a familiar object or favorite picture. Sometimes calm is only a glance away. The Stoics often reminded themselves that perspective could shift the weight of the moment, and one way to shift perspective is through the comfort of something familiar. Imagine a weary sailor returning to harbor and seeing the light of a lantern in his village window. That single image, ordinary yet grounding, was enough to remind him he was safe, that the storm had passed. In much the same way, looking at a familiar object or a favorite picture can act as a reset, pulling us out of stress and back into steadiness. Epictetus captured this beautifully when he said, "It is not things themselves that disturb us, but our opinions about them." A simple image can soften those opinions and return us to balance. For the Stoics, memory was not just recollection, but a tool to strengthen character. A small object, a ring, a letter, a token, could carry with it the reminder of someone's love or a moment of triumph. A farmer might carry a small carved charm from his child, and glancing at it during a hard day's work could remind him why endurance mattered. In modern life, a favorite picture on your desk or a keepsake in your pocket serves the same purpose. These objects aren't magical, but they awaken gratitude, connection, and resilience, the very virtues the Stoics prized. Marcus Aurelius often trained his mind by reframing what stood before him, writing, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." Looking at a beloved image or object is a quick way to reframe the present. A student panicking before an exam might look at a family photo and remember that their worth is not tied to one score. A parent feeling the strain of work might glance at their child's drawing on the fridge and be reminded of joy. This reframe is not escape. It is perspective, an instant way to shrink the stress and magnify what truly matters. The brilliance of this practice lies in its ordinariness. Stoicism was never about escaping the world, but about finding wisdom within it. By pausing for just a few seconds to look at a familiar object or a favorite picture, we step into a moment of grounding, gratitude, and clarity. Stress loses its edge when we're reminded of who we are and what we value most. The Stoics would have nodded in agreement. Peace often arrives not through grand gestures, but through small, steady acts of attention. Number 5. Playing with a small object. It may surprise you, but something as ordinary as rolling a coin in your fingers or turning a stone in your hand can bring a wave of calm. The Stoics often used physical tokens as reminders of their teachings. These weren't decorations, but tools, grounding them in the present and shifting their attention away from spiraling thoughts. Imagine a child fiddling with a marble in his pocket during a tense family gathering, though small. It gives his hand something steady, and his mind soon follows. Seneca once wrote, "We are more often frightened than hurt, and we suffer more from imagination than from reality." A small object becomes an anchor, pulling us away from imagined storms into the steadiness of touch. The Stoics understood that the senses could redirect emotion. Just as a calming scent soothes the nerves, touch can quiet the mind. A soldier in the Roman camp might have carried a simple wooden charm, rubbing it between his fingers before battle. That texture, rough yet familiar, helped him focus, shifting his energy from fear to readiness. Playing with an object doesn't solve problems, but it offers a momentary pause, a reminder that the body can guide the mind back to balance. Marcus Aurelius kept notes to remind himself of perspective, but he also valued daily rituals that shaped thought. For us, playing with a familiar object, a pen, a coin, a ring, can become a ritual of presence. Picture a shopkeeper, worried about debts, who runs his thumb along the edge of an old silver coin his father once gave him. In that brief act, he remembers resilience, family, and the endurance of past struggles. The coin is not wealth, it is memory, grounding him in strength. What the Stoics show us is that philosophy is not confined to lofty ideas, it lives in everyday gestures. Playing with a small object for 60 seconds may seem insignificant, yet it offers the mind a resting place, a way to step out of stress and into steadiness. These practices remind us that calm isn't always found in silence or solitude, but in ordinary, tactile connections that bring us back to ourselves. Sometimes, it only takes a coin, a pebble, or a ring to remind us that peace is close at hand, literally. Number 6. Visualizing a peaceful place. Stress can feel overwhelming, but the Stoics often reminded themselves that the mind has the power to create its own refuge. Even for just a few seconds, imagining a calm, safe place can bring remarkable relief. Picture a shepherd sitting under an olive tree after a long day, closing his eyes and imagining the gentle hills around him. In that moment, the world's worries soften and the mind finds space to breathe. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. Visualization is one of those timeless tools, a brief mental journey that resets the heart and steadies the mind. The Stoics often describe the mind as a fortress, a place where reason and virtue could flourish. By visualizing a serene environment, we are effectively strengthening that fortress. A young student, anxious before an important exam, might picture a quiet riverside where the water glides gently past, carrying away tension with each ripple. This exercise doesn't escape reality. It equips the mind with calm, preparing it to face challenges with clarity. Visualization becomes an internal retreat, a space where stress diminishes and focus emerges. Stoicism recognized that the senses are deeply connected to emotion and memory. Combining visualization with sensory imagination can magnify its effect. Imagine a grandmother recalling a sunlit meadow from childhood, smelling the wildflowers, hearing the bees hum. The combination of imagery, scent, and sound grounds her in a moment of serenity, lifting her from anxiety. This is practical philosophy, using memory, imagination, and attention to guide emotions and cultivate inner peace. The power of visualization lies in its simplicity. A brief mental escape to a peaceful place can transform a day, even if only for a minute. The Stoics valued such small practices because they were practical and immediate, offering real tools for life rather than abstract ideas. By giving the mind a safe haven, we can interrupt the spiral of stress, refresh our perspective, and return to the world calmer and more composed. Even a 60-second journey to a serene mental landscape can be enough to remind us that tranquility is always within reach. Number 7. Positive self-talk. Our inner dialogue shapes how we experience stress, yet most people rarely pause to notice it. The Stoics emphasized the importance of speaking wisely to oneself, training the mind with reason and encouragement. Imagine a young apprentice struggling with a difficult task in a workshop. Instead of spiraling into frustration, he quietly tells himself, "I can handle this step by step as I have before." That small, deliberate encouragement mirrors what Epictetus taught. First say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Positive self-talk is a bridge between thought and action, helping the mind steady itself in moments of tension. The Stoics often treated language as more than a way to communicate with others. It was a tool to shape our inner world. A farmer facing a sudden storm might murmur a short, firm phrase like, "I will endure and adapt," focusing the mind and calming the heart. Even if the words seem simple or repetitive, they act as anchors, reminding the individual of courage, patience, and perseverance. Words we speak to ourselves are a small but powerful mechanism to shift emotional tone, offering a pocket of calm in the whirlwind of life. Marcus Aurelius frequently reminded himself to reframe difficult moments through reasoned reflection. Positive self-talk is a modern version of this practice. It's an active choice to rewrite the story we tell ourselves about challenges. Consider a student nervous about a presentation who whispers, "I have prepared, and I will do my best." That narrative immediately softens anxiety, creating focus and presence. Stoicism teaches that while life throws events at us, the way we describe them internally profoundly shapes our experience and our response. The beauty of positive self-talk is in its simplicity and immediacy. For just a few seconds, a few intentional words can interrupt stress, redirect attention, and restore composure. The Stoics valued small, consistent practices because they accumulate into resilience over time. By speaking to ourselves with clarity, kindness, and intention, we cultivate a mind capable of meeting life's challenges without being overwhelmed. Even 60 seconds of deliberate, positive self-talk can transform tension into strength, proving that Stoic wisdom works not only in grand reflection, but in everyday action. Thank you for staying with me through these Stoic strategies. By exploring how simple practices like positive self-talk, visualization, or even touching a small object can calm the mind in just 60 seconds, you've seen that Stoicism isn't abstract philosophy but a practical guide for daily life. Each technique reminds us that peace and resilience aren't distant goals. They are built through small, intentional moments of awareness. Carry these strategies with you. Try them in your own day, and notice how even brief pauses can transform tension into clarity, stress into composure, and ordinary moments into opportunities for inner strength.